Okay, and we are live. Guys, sorry we had a little bit of a delay, but everything is good to go. So, today on the sessions, I am very proud to present KaranVir Arora. KaranVir Arora is the award winning CEO, founder of Vimanika Comics. Vimanika Comics is an award winning Indian comics company which creates stories based on characters from the Indian pantheon and history. Karanvir himself has done extensive research in Indian history and Indian deities. So the comics that he creates are imbued with that deep research and that deep knowledge. He hopes to educate people, young and not so young, through his comics about their culture, about their cultural figures, and their cultural heroes through these comics. So please welcome to the show, Karanvir Arora.
Hi, Sham.
It's good to have you,
Thank you
Karanvir.
for having.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show, Sham.
No, absolutely. It's absolutely a pleasure. I think what you're doing at the moment with with Vimanika as well. Not only is this a great idea in terms of a business, but I think it at this time and age, it's a great service, particularly for people who are so detached from their culture, who are so detached from their history, their heroes, and their cultural figures that today it's such a great way that they can actually consume these things through like a comic form, and they can learn more about it as well, right? What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I was just sort of thinking about this before we went live, and the reason why I started these comic books 10 years ago. I mean, approximately 9, 10 years ago. Is because of the same reason that not only Indians but especially the youth of our country, you know, in India and abroad,
Right.
around the world, is uh, is cut up in two sections. One is, one section is uh, where they, which pertains to the youth, which doesn't have any kind of information or is ignorant about our history, ancient history. And the second one thinks that they know, but they don't know. They've been programmed otherwise by, uh, the invaders and the whole colonial Brits that came down to our country in the 18th and the 19th century and over ruled us for like hundreds of years. So basically, that whole identity over the past 50 years, 60 years, especially when, the Congress party and the Nehru dynasty started off, was totally made sure that it was maintained, that whole Marxist attitude and the whole, you know, there was nothing like an ancient history in our country. The whole point was, the whole point is that when I saw this, I was very shocked and realized that the only history that we know is that happened 60 years ago. There's nothing beyond that we know of our country. And we don't even know the meaning of our country, India, what it actually means. So when I saw this, I realized that, uh, I want to make something that is appealing and appeasing, and you know, people don't get bored, you know, and that instrument can, share the knowledge, maybe not educate, but share the knowledge, and in some ways also educate if possible, with entertainment. So when I did a lot of pondering and a lot of research, I realized that comics is something that had been obsolete, long gone obsolete 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, with big brands falling down and things were not working out in India. So we thought, why not? What is it that they are missing out in this market to, that we can do for it to again start growing, you know? So, I thought it sat with my creative team and we realized that, if we create some, we have some good graphics, which is appealing, appeasing, and is, relatable worldwide, then I think people will relate to it, especially Indians around the world. In India will not find it cheap in any way and would connect to the stories faster if it's youth oriented. So we started creating European artworks. We saw a lot of other artworks, and it's a mix of, the manga, the European, and the storytelling also is, of course, the storytelling is very much Indian as we try to keep it, but we try to take out a new art in India, you know while getting inspired by the other arts, like I just mentioned to you, from different countries. So that's how these comics came about, frankly speaking.
And it's such an interesting thing that you mentioned as well, and that's kind of what I was thinking when I read Vimanika Comics. That's kind of what I think as well. That it's told and it's designed in that format that Western comics are usually based in, but then it
Absolutely.
uses an Indian storytelling system. It tells Indian stories, and it tells indigenous native stories, which I think is so cool. Which I think is what really makes Vimanika so unique. It's because we see how pervasive these Western comics are in and across the world. Even in Indian heads, they think of these Batman comics, these Superman comics, and so on and so forth. So I think it's just a fantastic idea to use that framework, but then use it to tell Indian stories. I think that's really cool as well. And what have
Thank you.
you kind of seen in terms of people's interest in Indian stories? What have you seen since you started Vimanika?
Well, that's a good question. It's a very varied uh, interest the Indians have, and we're still exploring. I mean, India is a market where we are learning a lot, basically, because it's not only vast, it's not only diversified, it's really deep. We've got very good, strong spiritual roots, but unconsciously or subconsciously, we are still trying to connect with our past. So we really don't know what is an actually interesting story, because we've been so influenced by the Western stories, the Western fables, and the Western legends. So we tried a few titles. We came out with the sixth, that is based on Karna,
Mm.
and I have the book right here, the graphic novel. This is what we came out with.
Oh
Okay,
wow.
and yeah, right. If you see the inside pages, if I show you some inside pages, this has all the 7 issues. This is like the season one. Okay, and we came out with this, and we came out with Shiva. That is the best-selling title that we launched after the sixth, post the sixth. We got very good critical acclaim for the sixth, and because of the story. And for Shiva, we people really loved the whole story, because it was like, you know. Retelling the Shiv Puran in a graphic format. So that is what people really loved, and this kicked in. People really loved Shiva, the legends of the Immortal, and I think it's got to do with certain gods and their popularity, and what we have been narrated when we were little. When we were little, and what our grandmothers and grandfathers had narrated to us. So it's gone, and it's been indoctrinated in our subconscious minds. So people connected quickly to Shiva because he's a very global god.
Yes.
And then, of course, characters which are related to Mahabharata were also connected quickly, and one of them is Karna, which is namesake for me, and a very interesting character. So we came out with that, as I just showed you. So we came out with Dasha Avatar, that also did well. Shiva, Karna, Moksha. So we came out with a few titles. So we are actually, there are some titles we continue, we build on, and some titles we have to hold on. We have to shelf them for some time, because uh, that's how we come to know that which title is doing once we get them out in the market, and we should be ready for for any kind of circumstance where we uh, we get mixed response. Some is a good response for some titles, and some titles which we expected would do well don't do well. So we are still learning. It's still a learning process for us.
No,
But overall, I
definitely.
believe that Indians. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, no,
Overall, I
that's
believe
fine.
that Indians really need to. Uh, I should say. Uh, Understand. Indians need to be exposed more to our stories, more to the ancient history, the Vedic knowledge, and the Vedic legends that we have, for them to decide, actually. And they need to be presented very well, because that's the art of presentation, which is something that I learned from the West. They have brilliant art of presentation. So I just thought we have so many stories, but the way we present it, it's really outdated, you see. So that's how we came about these titles and these comic books as a medium.
That's so true, and I think that's such a good point that we have so many good stories that we can tell, and
Absolutely.
there's such a great civilizational wealth that we have in terms of these stories and in terms of these characters. It's just that the storytelling, the way that we present these stories, needs to be updated to fit the people who are in the prime position to consume those stories, and a lot of people are saying in the chat as well to provide kind of more links to these comics, and I'll provide all the links to the websites and where the comics can be bought once our conversation is over as well. But one of the things that I also kind of wanted to ask you was I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Vimanikopedia. So
Okay.
walk us through Vimanikopedia a little bit as well and what that's all about.
See, Sham, Vimanikopedia is an initiative that we started, which is an initiative and a part of Vimanika Comics. Okay, it's a glossary of Hindu mythology and history, ancient history. So we started out with a website called Vimanikopedia. Okay, and then now we extensified it to a channel on YouTube. So what we do is we narrate the stories, the ancient stories and the legends that we have, the epics that we have, through a graphic medium, a graphic format, the motion graphics, and in a signature style of Vimanika Comics, and of course now recently I'm going to be you could say launching a sample test Vimanikopedia documentary to know what is the kind of response people have as a host, and present a perspective which is to sort of connect with the youth and help them break and understand and break the myths and the hoaxes that we have been programmed with for thousands of years. I will not say hundreds of years, but more than that, because we have been under invasion for thousands of years. So we have a very wrong picture of our country, and it's not political. It's our very ingrained mindset that has been, of course, politically influenced. But we cannot blame it on anything else but ourselves, because we did not further you know awaken ourselves to understand this history as you or I am doing, basically. So more and more people need to wake up and understand that we have everything, all the answers to all our questions in the past. And like, I can quote Shashi Tharoor in one of his BBC interviews. He mentioned and he said that, if we go in our past, we will come to know our future. Who we are is who we were. So if we know who we were, we will know who we are and where we are going. So this is very important to learn the good from our past and our history, not the bad. Don't say the bad, because we've been totally ignorant about our history. So we don't even know if that bad is true. We've just been influenced and programmed about certain things. Like, for example, when I realized there was no caste system in our country, there was no such thing as caste. There was, in terms of in terms of your hard work and your skills and your character. That's how it was segregated thousands of years ago in our Vedas. There was no mention of caste system. This is something that has been politically, or through the invaders that we have had, has been programmed in our mind, and that has been the Achilles heel for us. Because we've been looked down upon because of that. So, and a lot of other things have been happening because of that. So I've been noticing everything, and we need to go back and learn from our own ancient books, and learn from the rishis and the munis that have written these books thousands of years ago, and learn from the Sanskrit, that is the most ancient language in the world. So things like that, which I would like to bring in, and on my show, on the documentary, is to make people more aware. And if I can do it, that's lovely. If I can't, then I'll be kicked out, and I'll get the response, because the market is not what you expect all the time. So
No,
maybe we don't
absolutely.
do any good to the market, but if it maybe 1% also connects with people, then I'll be very happy, because this is my passion.
That's exactly what I was going to say, that even if there's one person out there that watches your documentary, that watches the show, and is just like, you know what, that made me think. That made me think, and now I want to go and read some more on my own, and I want to
Yes,
discover my own heritage, and I want to discover my own culture on my own. Even if that does it to one person, man, imagine that one person goes and starts a company or goes and starts some kind of a movement. It's a big thing. It has a big, that expanding effect. So
absolutely.
I believe whatever can be done is such a big deal, and I think it's such a great service in today's day and age where we are taught. I think Hindus are taught in schools. Hindus are taught in popular discourse in India these days that if you take pride in being in your culture, if you take pride in your history, then
Right.
that makes you a bad person. And that's,
Yes,
you said that in your video as well, which one of your videos I was watching, it was very interesting. You said that, look,
absolutely.
because I say that I am proud to be a Hindu, because I say I'm proud to be an Indian, doesn't make me a politically bad person or doesn't make me a bad individual, doesn't make me a fascist. It just makes me a person who is very proud of the most ancient civilization in the world. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and you don't need to be violent. Just because you're saying it, that doesn't mean you're a fanatic or you're a communist or you're a fascist person or you're a myopic person. It's just that it's just that you're a proud Hindu. And I think there's nothing wrong. Any country you see, everyone is proud. Japan is proud with their history. Americans, 200 years old history, maybe maybe maximum that's it. 200, 300 years, but they're proud about it. The same way, France, Germany, all these countries, they're proud of their history, the good part of the history. And we want to be proud of our history. We don't even know the good part. Forget the bad part. We don't know anything about history. Forget about bad or good or anything like that. And I find that really ignorant, especially the elitist intellectuals who think they are intellectuals. They are guiding our country. I'm telling you, into the hole. Basically, I'll tell you one thing. I'm very straight up, and they're guiding them directly, guiding every one of us down. Because if we're going to listen to them and not listen to the right people, like scholars, for example, I was inspired by this scholar right here. This gentleman, Mr. Navratna Rajaram. Okay, he's my master and mentor in terms of our Hindu and our ancient history. He's been related. He's worked in the NASA. And he's a mathematician. He's a linguist. He's a scientist. And this such an educated person. When I saw this man come down from Massachusetts, come down in India and start writing these books. He's written over 24 books. Yeah, and this is the first book that I read was the In Search of the Historical Krishna, where he's proving Krishna existed scientifically 3080 BC. So
Wow.
when I read such books, my mind just opened up, and I realized that I am an idiot. I'm sorry to say that on your show, but I am an idiot. I don't know anything. It's just that I think I know, because I used to think Mahabharata was a hoax. I used to think Ramayana was a hoax. It's never happened. This is all just some, Rishi Muni's way of narration to teach us some lessons. You know, that's how we always think. We always symbolize these stories. We make it symbolic. Okay, this is Ram did this because he had to teach us this, and we knew. But actually, Ram existed. The Ram Setu existed. Pushpak Vimans were there. The scientific advancements and the weapons that they used were there. They existed. So that physical aspect of the story was never being told to us. Not even our spiritual gurus ever spoke about it. All they spoke about was the spiritual aspect. Nothing else. So we all thought it was just an illusion of spirituality and some stories that were written to teach us spirituality and some lessons. But nobody ever convinced us, that these things actually existed. These characters, these gods, they existed. And we were the most ancient civilization in the world. I would not say one of the ancient. I'm not saying that over the top. The most, not me, people like Graham Hancock, people like one of the renowned scholars, archaeologists, marine archaeologists. They have dived down to the seas and they have researched for many years, and they say that our civilization is the most ancient civilization, much more older than Egypt and Mesopotamia, which we think we sort of are in awe when we think about Egypt. We think, wow, this is awesome. The pharaohs, the whole Sphinx, and the statues and the sites that they have. But we don't know. We have 336,000 ancient sites in India.
Wow.
Okay, and and from them, only 3,600 have been maintained by the ASI. The ASI has not been maintaining our sites, the ancient sites, the ruins, and some of them are even temples. Now that the government has changed, it is happening. If I can mention, Modi ji is making an effort and he is putting that. Now, if I just take his name, I'm not a bhakt. It's just that as a human being, I've never been politically influenced. I've always thought as a human being and with common sense. A man is doing it, I see it, okay, he's good, he's doing it. And a guy who's not doing it, I am seeing it, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't find that a good deed. So basically, this is the fact that in the past government, the ASI has not maintained and never been encouraged or funded well to maintain these sites. And we don't even know. And they're maintaining sites which are not connected to our ancient history. Actually, they are the signs of our invaders, basically. All these monuments that you see. But what is identity? Our identity is not the invaders. Our identity is much beyond that. And that is something that has been hidden from us for thousands of years. Because if we come to know, then lot of change can happen. And that positive change was, especially the past political party that have been ruling for the past 50 years, they were not happy. They didn't want that change, So basically, they didn't want to empower. The real empowerment is what I believe is educating the Indians about the ancient history. I've spoken enough actually, and I can keep talking.
No, that's absolutely fine. I like it. I like it when you talk because you're making a lot of good points, and it's such an important thing as well because we really don't. You're right. You're absolutely right, and when you're saying that we don't know enough about our ancient history, and a lot of us don't know enough because we go to school, we get taught one page of one or two chapters in our ancient history, and that's it. And then the rest of the whole book is medieval history and then British India. So you have two chapters on 5,000 years, and then you have an entire book on just 800 years. So the way our history is taught. Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely, Sham. In fact, sorry to interrupt you, but
no, that's fine.
I just remembered that, I only remembered reading about Shivaji and Maharana Pratap. That's all. There was nothing else. And that too were the short paragraphs about them. That's it. I didn't know anything about them. And some books even, maybe a few years ago tainted them as terrorists. They were the ones who actually did a mutiny against, the Mughal forces or the Britishers at that time. So they were not painted as heroes exactly, and freedom fighters. And that's something that I realized was so shocking. And in my documentary Vimanika Comics, which you so eloquently watched, I should appreciate you for that. In that, I mentioned Shivaji and Maharana Pratap and the many heroes that have been forgotten. In fact, not only the men, the women warriors that have done such great feats and have fought in battle and won victories for the ancient India, the Bharat, they have never been spoken about. Today we talk about women empowerment, but do the intellectuals, the so-called intellectuals, the feminists, do they go out and they go back in history and study about Jhansi Ki Rani, or they study about other warrior queens who gave their lives, their family's life to protect and serve and defend our country? No, they don't talk. We don't even know who they are. It's only a few movies here and there in Bollywood that we get to watch, but they are also not researched. A recent movie that came out, that gentleman is not researched. So most of our stories were verbally told. There was nothing much written because we never believed in that. We were the believers of verbal retelling, and that's how it passed on from generation to generation, exactly with the right tone and frequency. We knew the science of verbally narrating a story and verbally narrating a mantra and teaching a mantra to the disciple. So it's not only the mantras, it's a science behind it. So a lot of things that have been not taught to us. Forget the science behind a mantra. We don't even know what a mantra means, what a yantra is. We don't know. We just know what it is, yoga. And that too, yoga has been copyrighted, almost copyrighted in the West.
From the West, yeah.
Our haldi, our ghee that you were talking about, I was reading about that. So you know what? We don't value our own products, our own dynasty, our own true dynasty. I'm not talking about the Nehru dynasty. The dynasty before that, our true legacy. we don't value that, and we laugh at it. We laugh at things like, what is this haldi, and what is this ghee, and what is this yoga. And before it became famous, we used to laugh at it.
Yep.
After it became popular from the West, it came down. We started valuing it. Arey wah, yoga to bahut acha hai, karna chahiye, it's very good. Why? What happened now? Now you started valuing it. Why? Because you realized there was status to it. It's important because it's coming on TV and it's coming on, television. So the journalists are talking about it. Must be important. This mindset of our country, in our country, that whatever is coming on television, on media, of TV, is important. Anything else written is not important. This mindset has to change. This thought
Absolutely.
process not. This is not intellectual. This is not intelligent. This is not common sense. Whatever makes sense, doesn't matter where it comes from. As long as it comes from an expert, it comes from the right source, you should believe it. You should not feel ashamed about it. It's not the, if you look at our culture, the West is following it. The meditation, to the yoga, to our martial arts, to our food, to our gods, to our spirituality, everything they're following. So means there is something there about our culture we are not seeing, and we are following the West. So, that paradox has to be, somehow summarized and found a
Changed.
solution around it.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. And it's a good point that you kind of raised. And I was talking about the ghee stuff as well. And it's so crazy because in so many of my friends, when I was living in Delhi, when I was going to college in Delhi, so many of my friends will talk about ghee as if ghee was this horrible thing. And I switch to olive oil. Why stop eating ghee? And now if you look in the US, people are switching away from oil. People are switching away from canola, olive oil, all of that stuff, and people are switching over to ghee. All of these hipster, hippie websites in the US are now projecting ghee as the next big superfood. So everybody I talk to is buying ghee. And if you look at Amazon in the US, and if you look up ghee in Amazon, it is so expensive these days, like to buy ghee because it's so popular.
Absolutely.
And it's so crazy that we run away from it, and then the
Yeah.
West adopts it, and then we look at it and we're like, oh no,
And
that's
we're like,
actually good. It's actually good.
that's so good. That's so
Yeah.
cool, And then we
And
say that. That's so cool and so
so
nice.
we
And
really
first we're
need
saying
to.
chi.
Right.
We go cheat on it,
Go ahead.
basically. Oh, it's not so, it's so LS, it's so lame, and it's so LS and everything. All these kind of terms that we have created, that we use, especially I'm a Mumbai guy, I've grown up in Mumbai, and I have seen all this stuff, there, and I find that LS, I find that really turn off, because one thing, you're ignorant, you have no knowledge about your history. You don't know nothing, and then you don't value the products, and then you make faces that, okay, it's what is this ghee, what is this ghee, I'll like go for olive oil, like you say, I'll go for tai chi, but I'll not go for yoga. And then later on they realize that, okay, when a person like Ramdev ji comes, okay, he makes it so famous that it goes global, and then the Western come down with the same thing, our people value it. So,
Yep.
when I saw all this, I realized that, this thing has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed soon enough, Sham, because this is something that, our country needs for the confidence, and like, great leaders like Modi ji say that, I'm not a bhakt again when I'm saying this, to all the people, that, if you want economic change, you need to know your identity. You need to have the self-confidence, and self-confidence comes from your identity. You don't know who you are. See, I'm KaranVir Arora. I know my name is Arora. I know where my family lineage comes from. What is my surname? You always go back in the past to get that confidence. But we don't know who our past is. We don't know our past at all in terms of history. When it comes to history, then how will we get that confidence? We don't know where we come from. So just forget the caste part of it. Just remove all that. As Vedic Indians, do we know who we were and what Bharat actually meant? We just think Bharat, that means, okay, it means, okay, you connected to RSS, that RSS, and RSS is so communist, and RSS is this and RSS is that. So, you make it political, but you don't see that what actual Bharat, you just disconnect all the political parties, and you just look at it as an individual, a Bharat, what it actually meant. There's so much of meaning to that word itself, and then you go visit yourself, and you go on Google, and you search the name India, what it actually means. India means nothing. There is no meaning to India. There is no meaning. That's the name that we were given by the Brits, the colonial Brits, and before that, Hindustan by the Arabs. But we were never given the name Bharat. Bharat was ours, you know. So when we talk about Bharat, again we go on the LS mode. How LS it is. So this is something. This feeling is something that I wanted to address, and I found this LS mentality. So I wanted to break that myth, and maybe through Vimanikopedia and through the comics that I have, that people find it cool and stuff, and that's how they started reading it more. But I want to reach more people. That's the reason why I'm going on media.
I think it's a good point as well, because that's the point I was earlier going to make, that rather than running after our own things when the West adopts it, we need to start taking the lead, which is why I think Vimanika is such an important thing, because Vimanika is taking the lead rather than waiting for the West to translate our own stories and our own heritage and sell it to us. So हमारा ही सामान हम ही को बेचो. Before the West starts to do that, it's good that Indians are, and an Indian company, an indigenous company, is taking the lead and then telling our stories. Because that's what we need to do. We need to have storytellers and companies from India tell these stories to the world, rather than other people take our stories and sell it back to us.
Absolutely, you're precisely right. That's
Yeah,
exactly
and that's what I think is so important about Vimanika, and that's what I think is, like you said, that's what I think is so important about media, because that's such a good way, and that's the way young people are consuming this stuff now. So that's such a good way to tell those stories.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I mean, that is what our objective is and was when we started out.
And what do you think of, in terms of comic books, one of the things that I'm seeing here in the West is that even some of the bigger comic book companies in the West, they're kind of consolidating and winding down some of their operations. What do you see like the future for comic books, particularly an indigenous comic book company?
See, you are right when you say that a lot of companies are winding it, and a lot of distributors are also winding down the business. And because of the advent of the social media and the e-commerce retailers coming alive, the physical stores also had a hard time, the brick and mortar stores. So we faced a lot of challenge like that. So that's why our focus is now directed towards digital space, digital comics, okay, and selling it on the e-commerce websites like Flipkart and Amazon. And not only focusing on comics, we focus on everything related to our graphics, because you see, we want people to connect to our ancient history, whether through our t-shirts, whether through our posters, whether through our comic books or our paintings, or you could say our mobile cases. We came
wow.
with this, 3D printed mobile cases, which gives this kind of our artworks the same quality, and you can fit for all models in India and abroad. And in fact, this and Shiva and Durga that we have is going to be exhibited in Budapest, Hungary this year. In fact, the next 2-3 months, all the comic books and merchandise is going to be exhibited in their museum. It's one of the most oldest museum in Hungary, basically. So, again, they value, but we don't, basically. So we had to come out with these merchandise to connect with people. And, if somebody doesn't like to read comic books, they can buy the mobile cases and, through that, connect to our comics. So it becomes a sort of a 360 degrees marketing strategy, so to say. We got to do the strategy, because if we don't do the marketing strategy, no one is going to do, and, our culture is just going to die out. We have to be the best marketers. And of course, I wrote this book also, especially The Legend of Karna, The Legend of Karna, because I wanted people to sort of, if they don't read comic books, they at least read books to connect.
Yes, tell us a little bit more about that book.
Yeah. Since this, for the sake of record, we've picked it up, so I'll tell you a little bit. This book has been my dream project. This has been my 15 years of research with the team.
Wow.
of journalists and archaeologists and scholars, and we have visited sites related to this character and demigod called Karna from Mahabharata. Okay, my namesake, I got inspired by this name that I was given. So I went uh, in the past of this name, the whole identity of this name, and I found out that about Karna. So I got really inspired by him, and how thousands of years ago, 5,000 years ago, this battle took place, which was the most bloodiest war in ancient India, and in the world, in fact. We've never seen a war such massive in size, and a lot of weapons of mass destruction and scientific weapons of mass destruction were used, including nuclear weapons in this war, which went on for 18 days. Okay, and people from China, from even Greece came and were involved in this war. And when I studied about their physicalities, the way they fought in the war, apart from their principles and the art of warfare, I realized that this character has to be studied because he was the most, I could say, least understood, misunderstood, the most misunderstood character in the history of Mahabharata. So I went into this study and I realized this very enigmatic character, and I started writing the book, and that's how this book came about. And this book has two stories running parallel to each other. One is the story of a guy called KaranVir Arora. He's not me. Let me clear that, just because he has my name. But he is a guy who is he's a real estate magnate and a tycoon in New York. Okay, and he's living the fast life there. Okay, and he's got everything, but he is missing something. So he gets these nightmares, that are related to his. He doesn't know what it is. So he goes back in the past. He goes down to India and goes to different cities and sites related to the ancient sites of Mahabharata, and he discovers the story of Karna. Okay, and also discovers the connection between him and the Mahabharata, and it's like a thriller, that opens up in three parts. There is trilogy to it. This is the part one of the trilogy. So we've got these two parallel stories running, the present and the past, so that people can again, relate to it and connect to it more. This was very natural. I never ever came out with a story or thought of the story to make people relate. It's just something that organically came out, and it's been my dream. And I've worked with a lot of consultant writers and artists, so we've got a lot of artworks also in this book. So it's like one of the few books in India, in fact, one of the first that has like artworks, with the artworks, the style that we have, the realistic artworks in the book, in the novel, so that people, we sort of connect the crowd, and they can understand our visuals, or they can understand my visuals, what I'm trying to get at, and it has been a good response. It is selling well. It's giving a very good response, and now we're working on part two, and people are really liking it, the whole concept, because we came out with a comic book and people said you should come out with more of the the further issues. So I just thought that if I write a book, I can cover more in a story format than a graphic novel or a comic book, because Mahabharata is very long. It's a very vast, it's a very vast epic. So as they say, it's twice the size of Odyssey and thrice the size of Iliad. So and we have a lot of characters. It's not just one or two like they have in the Odyssey or the Iliad. It's many characters and their perspectives. So it's a very mature epic, basically. So I think a lot of characters also get covered. The Mahabharata gets covered through this, through the story of Karna, the perspective of Karna.
So where can people buy the book? Is it only available online, or is it available in shops as well?
See, we are trying our best to make sure that's available and displayed in shops, but like I just said, due to many reasons, as I mentioned to you earlier, because of that, it's more prevalent online. We are prevalent on Amazon, the Amazon Kindle. We are available there also. We're available, or the hard copies are available on Amazon and Flipkart. They're available through Lead Start, our publishers, leadstart.com. And my own website, which I have created, Karna the6.com. They're available there also. So we're trying to. I'm trying to push it as much as I can. Make it available. So I hope so that the whole distribution channel improves in India, or we find a better way to sort of become more prevalent online, so that people get to read this book.
I
And
think online is a great strategy because it's again I'm so glad that you've taken that step and you're kind of adapting so well, because we were talking about how comic books in kind of the physical form, like a comic book store for example, those kind of concepts are kind of shrinking because of the digital space. So it's very important that uh, indigenous comic book providers like yourselves, they adapt and they move on to the digital space. And it's so important. Also, I cannot stress this enough, that people who are watching the show must go and check out Vimanika, because it's so important to support indigenous industries, because there are not a lot of people that are doing something like this. It's a very few people here and there that know how to brand it and that know how to sell it. Those two things
that's
are
right.
so important today. It's so
Absolutely.
important because we were again, and I cannot stress this enough, we keep talking about how many stories we have and how many different things we have. We just don't know how to brand it. And Vimanika does it so well, and that's one of the biggest reasons I think why I enjoy Vimanika as well. And do you get like do you, what kind of response do you get when people read Vimanika from your readers?
Well, the response we get, thankfully, is people are very grateful that we've come out with stories and epics like the legends like Shiva and Karna. They love our stories. They write very good reviews. They love the graphics, and they in fact give feedbacks like I went and I uh, narrated this story to my kids, and they loved it. So 12-year-old kids, 11-year-old kids love to read our books. So we have a 12-year-old kid who loves our graphic novels and comic books, and then we have a 65-year-old man who's an IS, a retired IS officer from Kolkata, who writes back to us and says, "Wow, you're doing a great job. I love the Shiva that you have." So we've got PhDs, we've got kids, we've got all kinds of people reading our books and comic books, and they are loving it because it's we believe in authenticity. What we try to show is, just because it's entertainment, we don't want to mess with our history. That's the reason why we believe in we are very fierce about our authenticity of our, as much close as we can get to uh, the so-called myths. I don't even believe they're myths. The legends that we have, the epics that we have, and retell them in a graphic format, as close as we can get to the authenticity, and keep it in the boundaries. Just because we want to get creative doesn't mean we cross the boundaries. Some of the comic book companies have done that, and including in India and abroad, and there have been backlash that people have not appreciated that. And they themselves they are sort of giving the wrong message across. you know for instance, for example, I was reading a comic book and they said that the son of the father of Arjun was Lord Agni. you know and that is absolutely gibberish. you know but that's the information, because he's a great storyteller, and it's a very big brand, so they wanted to sort of just change the story, just to make sure that it looks good and sounds good, because they're storytelling, they're narrating the story. So
Yep.
that's something that I am totally against, and I believe in giving the right information across and making it interesting. If you can take the real stories and make it interesting, then I think that is creativity. I believe that is creativity. Creativity is not that you change the story and you twist it to make it sound and look interesting. Creativity is actually taking the same thing and making it look so beautiful, making it
Yep.
look so exciting that people just, they believe that it's the first time they're reading it, and then they just become ardent followers of the whole story and the legend that you have produced.
And I think
That's
it's a good point as well. That's a great point. And one of the things, one of the questions that one of our, one of the people watching has put to us as well is Ashutosh Muglikar. He asked me this question. I wanted to make sure I put it out to you as well. So we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but
Mhm.
how would you say that what is the role of comics and what is the role of art, like you're producing, in spreading our culture? And what do you see the potential? What kind of potential do you see in it?
Yeah, the potential of art spreading our culture. That's a very good question. That's the reason why we started this publishing house. In today's times, I don't know about today. I think for the many millennia, it's only today that we see it. It's because of the internet. Uh, People respond. I feel, over the research and the market research, I feel people respond faster to art and graphics. So opposed to just text. So for example, if I have a beautiful painting of Vishnu right here, you know this is an iconic cover. So if I have this on the internet, it breaks the internet in the sense that people, there's a lot of response, and opposed to something I write about Vishnu. Now if with this, if I write something, people will tend to read it. So this is something that inspires them or makes it exciting and appealing for them to further read and study, because when you have an art, you help them visualize our culture, and what we have shown in our Oriental culture. I totally respect and appreciate the Oriental culture. The artisans have put so much of effort in creating the sculptures that we have, the murals that we have in places like Khajuraho and the Sun Temple, and the Shiva temples, and of course the artworks that we have created. But in those artworks, we have portrayed our gods, you know, very spiritually, very orientally. It's very
Yes.
oriental. It's not realistic. So if when we started creating our Vishnus and the Shivas like they were, like I thought they were or they could be, then people started to connect with that more. Because Shiva is the epitome of man and masculinity and all this, and then the Shakti comes that balances him, the epitome of nature. So when we portrayed these two characters, these two gods, in the graphic format, people realize, wow, Shiva actually looks cool. I am.
Yep.
He's relatable to me. He's lean, he's well built, and he looks cool on this mountain top. So they could visualize themselves standing there with Shiva. So we made it easier for them to visualize and imagine. So that's the reason why art connects, I believe, because it sort of bridges the gap. It connects. It's a link, to for a person to visualize, to connect with the visuals and the imaginations, and help them imagine things better. That's why movies and the medium of movies and the celluloid works 10 times better today, and it's much a bigger influence than books. It plainly shows. It's right there in front of you. That, hence, that's why art, we believed, is the way to go to start out with. That's how it can help us spread Hinduism. It can help us spread our culture, our history, the Sanatana Dharma, and show the good parts and glorify what is the truth. We glorify what is the truth, and the truth is what we glorify. And
Right.
that is, we glorify all that, and we show that to the world. And people around the world are very excited. I mean, we've got more people ordering in United States and Canada and UK than in India, through
Wow.
our website. So people now, they love this stuff. They say that we should come out more, more titles on this, and that's what we are trying to do. We're trying to come out with more titles and more one-shot titles for the future on different gods. So we are trying to get on board a lot of scholars like Navratna Rajaram might be working with us for future projects also. Like he's working on the first episode of Vimanika Comics. So we are doing a lot of stuff. It's just that I have a very lean and mean team. I would not say mean, but a very lean team. At present, as the adage goes, I don't have a big team. We don't have a big team. So whatever we have, the utilities or the resources, because it's a self-funded company, we're trying to build as much as we can.
Oh, definitely. And Abhishek Singh just commented on our live chat that he just purchased your book from Kindle as well. So thank you, Abhishek, for supporting a local industry. It's very, very cool of you. Yeah, here.
Thank you so much, Abhishek.
Yeah, Karan appreciates that as well. So it's a very, very cool thing that you did. And one of the other questions that one of our audience members just asked, talking manga, I think he asked that, do you see kind of you creating a more sort of animations around these characters as well? Do you see that as well? Because I watched one of your videos about the when you were releasing the Shiva book, there was a promotional animation that you created with that as well,
Okay.
and that was something that I really enjoyed. So he's wondering if you're looking to kind of create more animation with regards to your characters as well.
Yeah, we are looking to create animations also. So very good question that has been asked by the gentleman. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to build on motion graphics, and we would be connecting with animations very soon. We're tying up with a lot of companies and a lot of production houses to sort of come out with animation, live action movies, and stuff like that related. We even did a script for Maya Digital Studios for the 3D animation of the sixth Legend of Warrior Kid in the
Wow.
past. But what I believe is it has to be more quality based. We don't want something like low quality animations that some of the TV channels are producing today in India. We want a high quality, so we're
Right.
waiting for that kind of production, that kind of funding, uh, uh, that kind of what do you call the right kind of people, the right kind of vision, pioneers in this to help us, understand our vision and take it to a different format, in a quality format, not in a something that is just to make some money. We're not looking at just commercial. We're looking at commercial, but we want to present quality so that we give we set a standard in India, a yardstick, and we represent the quality of animation in abroad also. So we've gone into motion graphics right now, but we are tying up with a few animation companies. You will know about it very soon. But what we are aiming at now is with Karna, I want is live action motion picture. That's what I'm pitching for.
Oh, wow.
I want working on a TV series. We want to work on a production there, and we're working on a live action. We want to basically, So this is what my dream is, because I know it would be justified, if we have live action and opposed to the animation, because though the animation is very big industry, the live action motion picture industry is much bigger. We know that it's massive. So we've got the Avengers and the Batman and stuff like that. When Karna comes out, I'm sure he'll give a tough competition to all of these so-called superheroes.
I
Basically.
definitely agree so much. I mean, if you look at how popular, for example, Thor is, which is essentially a Norse mythological figure. If you look at somebody like that, if you look at there was a movie made on Hercules that was so famous, and I was just when I was watching that movie on Hercules, the one thing I was thinking the whole time is that imagine if they made a movie in India on Bhim, and it how popular that movie would be. And
Absolutely.
when that movie came out, I think last year that movie came out on Bajirao, and I was really looking forward to that movie because Bajirao is such a great figure in Indian
He's
history
such a
because he saved us from extinction. Essentially, he was the one that started
absolutely
the fight back against the Mughal Empire and
Mughal
started
Empire.
pushing them
Yeah,
outside of India. And the
absolutely.
crazy thing was that they missed such a big opportunity with that movie
Absolutely.
because they could
I
have
mean,
shown.
just for the sake of
Right.
discussion, just as since you just um, uh, picked this topic, I like to say he just spoke about whoever the director was. He just spoke about, or he just directed and showed maybe his love life or his romance, but he didn't
Yep.
talk about anything. He didn't show any of his wars and battles that he
Yep.
fought.
Such
I
a
think
missed
he fought
opportunity.
about I don't know how many numerous he fought battles he fought undefeated. He was never defeated, and those 56 or 100 battles that he fought, there was not shown at all. Everything. You see, that's the problem with Bollywood. What they show is And it came with Padmavat also the same way. All Bollywood does is they show the romantic and the romance. Because, यहाँ गली गली में भूत चढ़ा हुआ है प्यार का, भारत में, and अभी बदल रहा है. But these Bollywood producers and directors, they're not understanding. They're just looking at the commercial angle, and they don't want to take a risk. Even though movies like Bahubali has come and proven them wrong and decimated them totally, they still don't realize that, if a live action epic movie like Bahubali came, though it was fiction, it's inspired from our ancient culture, our ancient Hindu culture, it was a big hit, basically. So, they should be inspired from that, and they should show live action and the real story. In fact, forget not only the action, the real story of like you said, Bhaji Rao, and Padmavat, and that's the reason why Bahubali has done so well, and these movies haven't. I believe they haven't. It's the box office collection. You can show as much as you want, but the fact is that if people have not watched it, they don't talk about it on social media, it has done not well, basically. So yeah.
No, I know, I completely agree, and it's such a crazy thing, and it's so cool that you're looking to get these stories and get these figures from our history, kind of translated onto the screen in terms of either a live action or an animation, whichever works out. I think it's very cool because I think it's such a good way to tell that story. I think you said that yourself. It's such a good way to tell these stories because the West tells these stories, and you see how many people go and watch these things, how popular these things are, and they sell out every theater that they're shown in. So we have that potential, and we saw that potential with Bahubali. That was just one movie that we saw broke all kinds of records. That means people are hungry for these kind of stories. They want it.
Absolutely.
And and Bollywood, I don't know क्यों Bollywood को समझ में नहीं आती ये बात, but आपके पास इतनी सारी कहानियां पड़ी हैं, आप उस कहानी को उठाते हो लेकिन उसमें रोमांस डाल देते हो. कहानी, we want the stories. We
They're
don't
so
want the
incorrigible.
romance.
These guys are so incorrigible कि मतलब उसको उठाते हो, उसको रोमांस में डाल देते हो, हीरो लव किया, I love you, and all the whole thing again they do the same thing, and they keep doing it with that, and not that कि चलो बाजीराव मस्तानी का अपना बाजीराव की स्टोरी कुछ और था, उसका वो स्टोरी दिखाओ, show the true story of that warrior. नहीं, उनका वो ट्विस्ट दिखाना है मस्तानी के साथ, वो दिखाना है, वो तो क्या उसका बना हुआ है उधर, मस्तानी का वो ग्रेवयार्ड है वहाँ, उधर वो दिखाना है. It's known, maybe it's known, but you know what is more known is the wars that he fought. He gave his life, what he gave life for his country, the wars that he fought for the Mughals, the brains, the tactics, the strategist that he was, that is not shown. That they don't show what actually the people want to know. That's the reason why Bahubali did well. You see the strategies they have used in the war, the warfare that they have used in the battles, that has gone viral. I was seeing a video, on YouTube, and it was in French, and these guys were appreciating the warfare, the tactics and the warfare was used in the part 1 of Bahubali, and even part 2. So I was just seeing that, and I was saying how they value and they appreciate the good things that we had. And this is just 1%, mind you, Sham. This is just 1% that Rajamouli has done through Bahubali.
Yep.
And it's fiction. Imagine if the real stuff was shown. And I'm sure that none of these, so-called protesters that these directors and producers try to sort of portray to us or project to us, that we will have protest and people will go against. People will only go against your movies, and they'll go against your products if you do not research well. You don't research correctly, you don't show the authentic part of it, then only they will protest. So why don't you just do some research and portray that and project that and make it interesting, as Bahubali did? You can do too. But the whole point is the intention is not there, Sham. If they had the intention, they would have done it.
Exactly, the intention is not there, and they always feel like if we portray Hindu stories, if we portray Hindu historical stories, then for some reason we become these fundamentalists. Like
Yeah,
telling Hindu stories becomes a fundamentalist. Telling stories of
absolutely.
any other community is very
Oh,
secular, but
oh,
telling Hindu
absolutely.
stories becomes communal, becomes fundamentalist, and that mindset, that brain block that these people have, it needs to go away. And
It needs.
we need to kind of I feel like we need to, as people, we need to reach out to these big businesses. We need, all we see so many of these big industrialists, they always talk about how they take a lot of pride in their culture. If you take so much pride in their culture, you need to finance movies that talk about that culture. You need to finance
Absolutely.
these movies because these movies are deeply ingrained in people's minds. People
Absolutely.
really these Bollywood movies resonate with a lot of people, so use that medium to tell stories. These business people, they always talk a big game, but they don't really follow through on it. And it's we should ask them ki aap aiye, aap produce kijiye aisi movies.
Absolutely. And what happens is that most of these Bollywood movies, not only the directors and the producers, it's not only led by the directors and producers, but also these star actors. So all these A-listers, they are not interested in such stories. They would want to create a story which does not exist, it's gibberish, and they want to show another community connected to it so that they can connect to their community and their voters and their
किसी तरह से
their
फिल्म
fans and
सेक्युलर
their,
हो जाए. हाँ.
yeah, and secular, they don't even understand what secular means.
Yep.
Actual secular means is that you have no connection to any religion. That's what secular means. Secular doesn't mean you reject one culture and
For another.
you sort of you appease to and you lick up to another religion or some kind of a community. So this is something is not, I don't believe that's secular. That's a very myopic, narrow-minded thought process, of fear. You're creating this fear in people that if you show another community, if you show too much of Hinduism, you will be labeled as a communist, and that's not a good thing to have in parties. You will be labeled like that, and social circles, your friends will make fun of you. It is so LS. Then again, it comes to so LS and so lame. And you're so cheap, that you are a communist and you are a bhakt and this and that. So what happens? A person, an Indian, starts to feel, ashamed of his own culture.
Yep.
Starts to feel like this is exactly what colonial Brits did. They used to make us feel ashamed of our own language, that is Sanskrit. That it is such a low down language. And today, the whole world follows the language. They study the science behind the science of Sanskrit.
Yeah.
They study the science behind, because there are some terms in Sanskrit. There are many terms in Sanskrit that you can't translate into English. It's not possible. You can't do it. They're so advanced in nature, and all they say the mother of all languages. In one of my documentaries, I even said it's the mother of all languages. It is, because it's the most ancient language, and it's so highly intellectual. In fact, Graham Hancock said that no book after the Harappan civilization has ever been written which is as intelligent or intellectual as the Rig Veda was. So you see, people from outside realize the value, but we here, we go, oh wow, you've got the Harry Potters, and that is the Lord of the Rings. Even though Lord of the Rings is my favorite, I love the movie, I love the way it's presented, fantastic presentation. But people think that wow, that is history, that is fantastic, and superb, and look at the, look at the stuff they had and everything. Though that is fiction, and though they might have indirectly been inspired from our cultures. Like, in fact, James, that Mr. Cameron, he came down to India and he accepted that some part of Avatar was inspired from the Hindu mythology.
Oh, definitely.
So, people from outside, directors, producers are coming time and again, and they are saying out loud that, your culture is mind-blowing. Your culture is fabulous. It's so deep, it's so ancient. But we here are going into, we are doing Zumba, we are doing everything else in the world, and we're doing aerobics and whatever. That's good, that's not bad. But when it comes to yoga, no. Yoga we don't want. No, it's good. We just talk about it. We talk about the science of yogas in our discussions, in our cafes, and over our coffees and our beer. Wow, yoga has got this. But when you talk about, do you go and do yoga in your house? No, who does yoga? We watch TV and we go for partying, man. What yoga? It's good to talk about yoga, but not do this stuff.
Yep.
This is our hypocrisy in our country. And this is what our youth need to realize, that enough of the hypocrisy and the LS stuff. Get down to it, and please, understand it's very cool. Our stuff is very cool, and understand before all our products get copyrighted and rebranded in the West, before it gets rebranded and it gets presented to us and we are paying for it, like we're doing now for a lot of our art forms and our products, I think people should realize that they should start waking up.
I think that's a very good point. I think that's probably one of the most important points from our conversation today, is that you need to realize the value your civilization has, the value your culture has, and the value your products have before the West realizes it, adapts it, and sells it back to you. It is the same thing. It is the same thing that the British did to us. We used to be the textile leaders of the world. Uske baad, the British created their own industry in Manchester and started selling us textiles.
Absolutely.
The biggest textile producers in the world are buying their own products from the British.
And feeling bad about it. And feeling guilty about it.
Exactly.
Imagine.
And that's what we're doing now. We pehle 10 saal, 15 saal pehle, we would not touch yoga with a stick. क्योंकि योगा तो गंवार लोग करते हैं, गांव में जो गंवार होते हैं वो योगा करते हैं. अब for the past 10-15 years everybody in the West is crazy about yoga, so we're thinking अरे ये योगा बड़ी बढ़िया चीज है यार, योगा करना बहुत जरूरी है. योगा इज वेरी
स्क्वायर में न्यूयॉर्क में उन्होंने योगा लाइव किया. वाओ यार, सुपर्ब यार. टाइम स्क्वायर में किया उन्होंने. So it has to be cool. Yeah. This exactly, Sham, is the mindset that needs to change. And we are doing this reason why we started. This is something now. See, you got the answer. This is something that inspired me deeply. I said, if I create something presentable and something interesting and rebrand it and show it to them, then I think they will accept it faster than making it boring. Like, आप ये किताब उठा के संस्कृत वाली दिखा दी. Now, if I pick it up and I show it like this, पढ़िए, वो नहीं पढ़ने वाले. Even though it's the most ancient language, it is like selling a diamond to somebody. It's a diamond, आप ले लीजिए. He doesn't know the value of that diamond.
Yeah.
The only way he would know is you have to show how that diamond is made, where it sells, what's the value, what's the market value. That is exactly what we're trying to show through our products. I would not say just comics, everything else. But Indians need to support that, because some Indians have this thought process that आप टी-शर्ट बेचते हो भगवान का डाल के, आप ऐसे इसमें ऐसे केस में डालते हो. आप देखिए हमारे टेम्पल इकोनॉमी में, हमारा टेम्पल्स का जो इकोनॉमी है ये ऐसे ही चला है. टेम्पल्स के बाहर आप देखेंगे सब टी-शर्ट्स और ऐसे प्रोडक्ट्स बिकते हैं, एंड ये सालों साल से चले आ रहे हैं. और आप गोवा में जाओगे, आप ये सब टी-शर्ट्स हमारे गॉड्स के देखोगे बिकते हुए, और हम ही जाके खरीदेंगे उसको. पर कोई इंडियन करेगा, हमें उसका वो बहुत प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगी. नहीं, हमें we don't want to support. We have to change this mindset and start supporting the Indians as Indians and stop the crab mentality. That आप हैं तो आपको हम pull down करेंगे. आप क्यों कर रहे हैं? Western आदमी करेगा, fantastic man, you're doing super, I'll buy your product. But Indian कर रहा है, नहीं कुछ खराबी होगी इसमें, ये क्यों कर रहा है? This is something that we need to be more supportive. It has to be more united.
Very, very important point. And to extend your point as well, finally, I just wanted to say this as well, that you look at the US, you look at consumers in the US, they want to buy things that are made in the US. You look at consumers in New Zealand, they want to buy things that are made in New Zealand first. Then first New Zealand, then everything else. You look at Indians, they want to buy things that are made overseas first and then in India second. जब तक ये mentality change नहीं होगी, तब तक कुछ भला नहीं होने वाला.
This is the whole thing. Mentality change नहीं होती, and it's a hypocrisy. And this thought process, the only way it will go is when they will be given the right knowledge and the right in the correct presentation and the art of narration and all these great orators that we have, the great trainers that we have in our country, the musicians, the producers, the writers, all these people have to lead the way. They are the pioneers. If they will lead the way, the manufacturers, the companies, they have to get up, and then the public will be inspired. The common man will be inspired. If they themselves follow, because deep down they themselves are very, awed by the West. That's the whole point. That mentality, that culture has to come in our MNCs, our companies,
Yep.
our own companies, our own products, our own musicians, our own artists.
Yep.
Then only basically this whole thing will basically spread out. I believe this is my thought process. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe this over the years of being in the market and dealing with these products and having the feedback of all the numerous people and meeting a lot of people dealing with this, I believe this is the solution. Everyone has to who are leaders of our nation in different categories and different areas have to wake up. Example like Swachhata, and environmental, how we sort of, all the leaders, from actors, from these A-list actors and the musicians and everybody, they come together and they propagate it, and then the Swachhata thing moves ahead, and save the tigers and the environmental issues. Same way, our the same leaders have to start talking about our culture, Hinduism, and not shy away from it. It's nothing bad. You're not a bhakt. You're not a communist. You're not a bad guy. You're just being a nationalist. You're being a nationalist, and there's nothing wrong to be. You're not a hyper. There's nothing called an ultra nationalist. This is a wrong concept and term created by the Congress again. There's nothing called ultra nationalist. There's a nationalist and there's a non-nationalist. And every country, if Americans are so proud about their history, which is not much, then I think we are like 40,000 and beyond, and even a million if you go back with the carbon dating. And even NASA came down, the scientists from NASA came down and made a documentary on Ram Setu.
Yeah.
And scientifically proving that it existed and it was man-made. Still, see, after this we realized, oh God, wow, Ram Setu is cool. First we used to think, oh, what is this? It's just a bridge in between. It's geographically, or it's not man-made. It's just come together like that. We should just break it. It's good for a maritime business.
Yep.
But thankfully, our leaders here, there was some political will, and that thing got saved. Or that bridge would have been that. That is, I believe, that is the ninth wonder. I believe our Kailash temple, in Aurangabad, the one that has been built from top to down, is taken about built over 10 generations and 200 years and lakhs of stones.
Oops. Looks like there was a disconnection, is it? Karan, you still there? Wonder if I can still hear you. You still there, Karan? Wonder what happened there. I think, is it me that got disconnected, or is it Karan that got disconnected? It seems like there's Karan that got disconnected, right? I think so. Let me know if you guys can see me, or, well, our live chat is on, so I'm still in here, I'm pretty sure, right? Right. I'm still in here. Karan. Yep, I think Karan's the one that got disconnected, right? Let me see. Let me see if we can get Karan to come right back. We were kind of wrapping up as well, so it's kind of weird. And we were in a good spot there too, right? Yep. Yep. Let's see. See, let me just text him, see what happens. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Um, Dave Mishra raised a very good point. You know that we tend to care about our immediate communities first, and then we sort of worry about the greater community around us. Immediate community first, greater community second. So
I'm sorry, the batteries went out, and this was on my phone. So
that's no worries.
that's how we got disconnected.
That is no
Can you
worries at
hear me?
all.
I mean, I can't hear you.
You can't hear
Hello?
me?
I think I can't.
You might try.
The volume is a
hang on.
little low. I think your volume is low. I can't.
So I just sent you a
Okay.
text. So he's gonna try and reconnect. Hopefully, then he'll be able to see us. So should be a couple of minutes, folks. Just stick around. Let's see what the chat's saying. Yeah, so talking about caring about the larger community first before we care about our own narrower community. I think right now it's the reverse, and we need to kind of fix that.
I think I can't hear you, Sham. I think because of the phone is
Right. Can you hear me now?
technical issue. Can you see me?
I can't see you.
Okay.
But I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but it's a little. One second, hold on, please. Let's a little
Right,
bit.
right.
Hold on. I'm trying to.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I'm just trying to put it on speaker. Hold on.
Right, right, right.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you can you
I
hear me?
can't see. I can't see you, but I can definitely hear you.
Yeah. Now I can hear you now clearly.
Okay, perfect. So what we were talking about is I actually wanted to ask you one last question before we did wrap up. I wanted to ask you, what are the stories that you kind of wanted to tell in the future? What's the stories that you really are passionate about telling in the future?
One second. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see me now?
I can see something. I can't see you. I think it
One
might be the
second.
front. Ah, there we go. Now I can see
Yeah.
you.
Absolutely. What was your question again?
I wanted to kind of find out what are the stories that you're passionate about telling in the future?
The stories related to our gods, of course, goddesses, gods, and to name a few stories related to our, you know, the science, of the epics. Like, for example, like Mahabharata. I'm really excited. Ramayana is something that I'm very, very excited to talk about. And stories which are actually not directly related to characters, but legends, or different facets of our culture. Like, it could be any facet, maybe, got to do with, the supernatural, got to do with science, got to do with Pushpak Vimanas, so anything that's related to that, I would love to. But mainly, to name a few, is something like Mahabharata and Ramayana is the two epics that we like to bring down to the comic book graphic novel format. And of course, Shiva is something that we like to continue, because Shivji's legends are numerous, and this is just 3 legends. We're going to be coming out with more legends. and Dasha Avatar 2 is something that we have to continue. And of course, Ganesha, Lord Krishna, the gods related to these gods. There's so many gods that are known and unknown. So we want to bring in the unknown stories also. You know, uh, not only not in the globe of, or not only pertaining to Earth, but maybe outer space too. So it could be anything, because we were a civilization, or we were uh, a civilization that was very high tech, and we had pushpak vimans and flying machines that were out there, in different planets and different universes. So there are stories that people don't know that are related to outer space. It's just not Earth, because we
Mhm.
were really advanced, so we are not able to now digest that, because अभी खाली हम लोग रामायण और महाभारत मुश्किल से डाइजेस्ट कर रहे हैं. तो क्या आउटर स्पेस क्या डाइजेस्ट करेंगे, पुष्पक विमान क्या डाइजेस्ट करेंगे हम लोग.
Yeah.
We only know that Orville and the Wilbur brothers had invented the plane, the flying machine, but we don't know that Satish Talpade before that, 8 years before that, had actually through the Pushpak Viman, the Shastra, Vaimanika Shastra, which is the name that we have taken for our company. We've been inspired from. Uh, we've learned the tactics and the techniques from there, and created a flying machine which he flew for 15 minutes on the Juhu Chowpatty,
Oh wow.
in the air, and before it crashed. And the Britishers had taken that technology right there, like the technology they took of Tipu Sultan too, where he was using the missiles which had swords at the end of the missiles. They used the same technology the Britishers used for conquering other countries and fighting other battles. So they're taking a lot of stuff from us. We were like a gold mine, not
Mm.
only physically, but in all
In
aspects,
knowledge too, yeah.
in knowledge too, big time.
No, definitely. And I think if one thing people take away from our conversation today, I think what they should take away is the just that we need to kind of change our mentality. We need to start supporting our indigenous companies, our indigenous brands. We need to start taking that. If we take pride in our culture, then we need to start supporting our cultural values and our cultural things that we have. For example, like ghee and yoga are just a couple of aspects of it, but there's so many different things. So many different things. One of the things that I would say again is thank you to Karan for doing the show today. I had a great pleasure talking to you. I'm a big
Same
fan of
here.
Vimanika Comics. I would really, really encourage everyone. I will provide the links to Vimanika Comics, their website, their Amazon page. You should definitely go and check it out. They're doing some really, really good work. They're a small company, so I really, really recommend that people here watching today and people that watch the rebroadcast of the show as well, go check them out. Go support an indigenous industry. Go support an indigenous industry that is doing such great work. And yeah, we can leave it at that. Thank you everybody for watching today's show, and I'll give the final word to Karanvir if he wants to say something.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sham. I really loved your show, and I've watched a lot of episodes, and I'm really happy and privileged and honored to be part of it. And if I would say, I would exit this show, leaving a sort of takeaway from here, or a takeaway for all the viewers who are watching. I would say the one takeaway would be that never be ashamed of your ancient identity, your history, and support the indigenous um, industry that we have, and you know, try to just try. If you're not interested in our culture, no problem, but at least try to learn about the products and the culture and the art forms, the knowledge, the spirituality in different aspects and categories we had, from mats to architecture, everything we had. Just learn it, and understand. If it was written thousands of years ago, and we being a civilization which is the oldest and the only civilization which has written material which is still existing
Yep.
on to this day, no other civilization including Atlantis. No civilization in the world has written material to prove that they exist.
Mhm.
We're the only living thousands of years old civilization, and we're living people who have survived from there. We have texts, all the way back to 50,000 years old. You just need to believe and study it. You don't need to have faith in it. You don't need to even believe it. Forget that.
Mhm.
You just study it, and I'm sure you will see something good in it. You don't need to believe in God for it. You
Mhm.
don't need to. You can be an atheist, okay, and you can be a proud Indian. You can be a proud Vedic Indian. You don't need
Mhm.
to be a you don't need to be a Hindu for it, or a Muslim for it, for anything for it. You just leave the caste out, and you just focus on an Indian. Be a Vedic Indian. Thousands of years ago, there was nothing like that. There was just a Sanatan Dharma. Just see the Vedic Indian part of it and be an Indian. Try to understand what a Bharatiya is. I'm sorry, not an Indian, but what a Bharatiya is. Indian is just a name that has been given to
Mhm.
us. But since we use it a lot and it is relatable globally, I use it again for you. Be a Vedic Indian.
Right.
But before that, be a Bharatiya.
Right.
Learn about our culture, study about it, and automatically you will see something good in it that you can, stick with, and build on. That's it.
Definitely. And thank you again, Karanvir. Again, I appreciate having you on the show. I feel very, very happy that I was able to talk about Vimanika, because Vimanika, I've been a fan of Vimanika ever since I heard about Vimanika back in 2012. So I'm very
Okay.
happy I was finally able to talk to you and talk about Vimanika on the
Same.
show as well. And guys,
Likewise.
if you want to follow Vimanika, their links are provided in the description below. If you want to follow Karanvir, his link is provided in the description below as well. So please, I would really encourage, go follow him, go follow Vimanika, and go support an indigenous industry. I hope you liked today's episode. If you did, leave us a thumbs up, give us a subscribe. Helps the show out, helps me out, and I will see you again.
And please
Sorry, go
support
ahead.
Sham Sharma show. It is the best show I've ever seen. This is indigenous, I tell you. If you want to start in supporting indigenous, support Sham Sharma.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much again, guys. Thank you for watching. I will see you again next time. And until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you soon.